director or producer or something like that? All right. By the way, congratulations. I'll give you a class on leaf blowers soon. All right. So as far as doing the rescue, guys, just a quick note on, rescue teams. No matter if any incident happens, we are always going to get called no matter what. So some places like, Sauget and all that, with the big what they got, the oil plants, whatever they got down there. I forget what's there. Anyway, they have on-site teams that are ready to go all the time. Those guys are really good in their own specific area. They know their place. They know everything about their place. They can effect a rescue there no matter what. But guys are still going to get called if they have an incident. Here, and we have multiple places with confined spaces, but like I know the water company, they do confined space work all the time, but they don't really let us know that it's going on. They hire in a team from the outside, and that team's on standby while they're doing confined space work. But something happens, we're still going to get called. Probably the same thing at Bear, and maybe wherever, I can't think of wherever else has confined spaces, but probably get in the Bottoms and Fives area. A bunch of those places probably have some. So anyway, just know there that there might be stuff going on that we didn't know was going on when we get the call. All right, so we get a call for a rescue, so obviously the first thing we want to do is start gathering as much intel as we can. So the best intel we can get, obviously, is if we know these places exist, obviously, is pre-plan them. We have really good pre-plans for, buildings and such, but we probably don't have really good pre-plans for rescue type scenarios, or especially confined space scenarios. We know they exist. We know, like both the water companies, there's multiple different confined space areas in each one of those places, more than I know about. You go to Bear, there's multiple confined space areas. I mean, that place is a city in and of itself, but to include even, a lot of people don't know, a lot of the walkways are half you go underneath there. Those walkways are pipe cases and everything else, and wires and cables, and you name it, they go down in there as well. So we can't always really pre-plan those, but if we can, that's our one of our best defenses against, us not getting hurt or knowing what's going on, is having this stuff in our minds ahead of time. But without having that, you're going off of whatever you can get from dispatch, you're going off of call notes. We know that's kind of sketchy till we get there. Obviously, things change what they tell this person than what they tell us when we get there. You get there, obviously we got to gain control of what's going on. Tensions are usually high, especially if it's, a group of outside workers. We know how they all get. They're very close to each other. They want to get this person out right away. They don't understand sometimes why we don't come off the truck and jump right in the hole and just go get their buddy. They don't get it. We have to be safe. We're not going to get there and put ourselves in harm's way right off the bat. We have to do things safe so we don't end up getting in trouble. So you need to find the person that's best suited to give you that information. If it's a job going on, find, they usually have a foreman or somebody like that that's overseeing the job. Try and find the person that's overseeing the work that's going on. Or try and find the safety officer or the safety guy that's overseeing stuff. I probably wouldn't try and get an executive or anything like that, but somebody can answer your questions. I know the guy that be by today, Martin Robinson from the water plant. Yes, he's executive level, but he's a guy that will know everything that's going on and really loves us and knows that we're there to do work. He would be a guy that I would go to at the water plant if he was there right off the bat, because I know he knows everything about every system, and everywhere in that plant he knows that. So, that guy? Great. But if not, get as much information as you can while you're there, thinking about how many people, what's going on down there, all that good stuff, right? What they were doing, what they were using, what you might be dealing with. Get our hot zones established right off the bat. We know the hot zone is the ideal H area, so whatever that confined space area is, our ideal H area. That's our restricted area. That's the area that whoever goes in there has to be in full proper PPE, secured on the line, all that good stuff. Outside of that, obviously the warm zone, where all our operations are taking place to effect the rescue, right? Our air cart guys, rigging team, probably ops guy, all that stuff is going on out there. Comms, if we have comms going on, all that stuff's out there. Moving back farther, the cold zone, that's usually where we keep everybody else. All the people that are there, media that's there, usually command is probably going to sit outside there. Maybe not always, that's up to them, but they're usually going to be out in their area too, kind of out away from us. So when we get in there, the first thing we want to do, obviously we know that these places that they're working in might involve some type of moving parts, equipment, so forth. So we want to make sure that we lock out and tag out those systems. So you want, again, find the person that knows exactly what's going on in there, what systems shut that down, and that area shut that down. Go to that. We carry lockout, tag out on 2216. 2246 has some. West County, I know when they come in, they have a box. I'm assuming Metro West probably does. There's all different things in those boxes. If you ever get a chance, you're on 16, open it up, take a look. There's different, there's an instruction sheet, but you can shut off or lock out valves. You can lock out, it's not just padlocks and all that. But we want to lock out those systems one way or another.
Circuit breakers, all that stuff.
Yep, absolutely. We do have breaker locks on there, all that good stuff. The important thing to remember is if they might have done their due diligence and gotten in there and locked everything out already, and that's great, that was wonderful for them, they did everything correctly. We still go in there and we lock that out with our own locks. We do not use their locks. We can keep them on and add ours in, or we take theirs off and put ours on. That's simply because, you have to go worst case scenario. I don't have a lot of faith in some guy that loves his paycheck and wants his job, and some executive comes over and goes, "You shut down that system too. We still got to run that for production. Take that damn thing off." What's he going to do, So we always put ours on there to ensure that somebody cannot unlock it other than us. Also, again, if we get enough cops down there, usually there's not going to be enough of us. But cops the best one. You tell them, "Hey, I know it's a shit job just to hang out over here, but it's really important that you're here to make sure nobody comes over here and messes with these locks." So ask an officer to watch over that area so that nobody comes in and turns a system on. Well, I got guys working in there with augers or something like that. Then we're in big trouble, right? So we get it locked out, tagged out. The next thing we want to do is we want to start monitoring the air. We want to see what we're dealing with. They might have air monitoring going. That's great. Look at their meters, see what's going on. They might have better stuff than us, but we always start doing our own air monitoring. And again, when we take meters in, if it's a horizontal area, we can't really lower a meter in. Obviously, it's going to be, when guys go in, they'll have meters on them. They'll have to kind of do it as they go in. Unless there's already set up stuff that's in that room that you can monitor from the outside. But if we're lowering meters down or lowering a tube down from a meter, just remember you want to do it at a rate of about 1 foot per second, and that lets you, adequately lets that meter or that tube sample all the layers of air as it goes down. If you just sit there and feed it and drop it down, it's not really going to, get all those layers of air at the top. It'll start reading at the bottom. But depending on what we're dealing with, vapor densities, are different. Some are lighter than air, some are heavier than air, some kind of sit right in the middle. It just depends on what we're dealing with. So remember, about 1 foot per second, lowering your meter down. It's better to have the tube, and I know even on 16, I wish we got to work on that too. We would love to have the longer tube that comes off the meter, so you can have the meter in your hand as the tube is sampling and see what it's saying. When you're dropping the meter down and lowering it nice and slow, when it starts going off, you know that it's alarming, but sometimes when you bring it back up to see what it's alarming, your alarms might stop because now it's in a different sample of air. So I think that's something we talk about.
Can you check on there, like the high point?
You can't check the history. But it's nice to know while I'm doing it right then and there that this is here and this is there. You could have multiple alarms too or whatever, but yes, you can check the history on this. So we want to get that going, and we want to do continuous air monitoring the entire time. Not only with a separate meter, but as my rescuers go in, we got enough meters on trucks. Each rescuer should have a meter on them as they go in. All right, and the other thing is, depending on what we're dealing with too, we want to start ventilating that area right away, right? So we have, the ram fan on 16, we have fans on here. We even have all the nice battery-powered PPVs if we need to these days. We don't want to use gas-powered fans if at all possible inside that area. So we want to get in and we want to ventilate. And it's important to know what's in that hole or area as much as possible because, as you start to ventilate, number one, that can change the LEL that's in there if that's what you're dealing with. As it compresses, it can push stuff up and out that's meant to be on the bottom. So you got to know what it is you're dealing with. The other thing you need to know is where are you ventilating to. So if I'm putting it in here, which was their entry point, most likely is where we're going to be ventilating from, I know what I'm dealing with. Am I dealing with something high? Am I dealing with something that's hanging low? And what exhaust ports do I have to ventilate this with? It could be just an enclosed box that you're dealing with and you have no other exhaust port, or you have multiple exhaust ports to choose from. And so dealing with, so like if I've got carbon monoxide or something like that, where does that usually hang? That hang more up. So if I have a multiple exhaust ports, I'll probably choose to open one up on the top as opposed to a bottom one. Just depends on what you're dealing with. So we want to open up those exhaust ports. We want to make sure that where those exhaust ports and that air is ventilating to is not getting in, and encumbering somebody else that's there just standing around, or workers or something else. We make sure that area is clear as well. If our only exhaust port is the entry port where we're putting the ventilation in, again, we need to be monitoring outside as well as inside, because obviously we're exhausting everything out to where we're all working. And so that might require that, as much as it would suck, that we end up having to be guys that are right there next to the area, the attendants, whatever. You might have to be on air depending on what's going on. We might have to be monitoring for LEL depending on what's going on. Or we might have to do a lot of continuous ventilation depending on what's in there before we even get to work. It's so variable on what you can be dealing with inside these places. And then, decent monitoring on the outside as well. Oh, let's see. So next one. So even though, we talked about we're not mandated by OSHA, at all as first responders. These people they're doing their permit and all that. Just remember though that everything we do, there's always going to be an investigation on these things. So it's going to come back on us if anything happened, and what they're going to judge us on is always going to be on OSHA standards. So that's why we're trying to do things by the book. We're trying to do things based on what an OSHA standard would be, which is why we'll talk about, we got guys on retrieval lines, we have guys on there, proper PPE, all that stuff is taken care of, backup guys, everything is to the letter. But the important thing is documentation. So we want to fill out confined space rescue permit, and that can be anybody from command to usually it's going to be whoever the guy in charge of ops is, most likely. And probably a scribe for that individual as well. It's kind of hard to monitor everything while you're writing down. So if Ben's in charge, I might have Ryan, writing down for him or whatever. He's writing the stuff down for him. I have a couple sample ones we use today for whoever's running it. On 2216, on the iPad of 2216, we do have an editable confined space permit on there, confined space rescue permit on there that we can use and then fill out and then print out if need be. So just know that. If you're ever up there on 16, you can look it up on there. We'll show you where it's at. But we also have some paper ones, and that's kind of what I got today is a generalized kind of general form of whatever, as long as you're keeping track of everything. But it's all like anything else we do, documentation, documentation, documentation. It kind of sucks, but it's really, really important in the end game of this. I know not while everything's going on, but in the end game, you're going to have that. Or somebody's going to question why we didn't do that. All right, so as far as doing the rescue, so obviously you guys kind of remember our positions. There's everybody here's done confined space. There's confined space, right? They didn't send anybody.
There's a few new guys that have very limited.
Okay, so I apologize if I'm talking over your head. I'm trying not to. I mean, that's why we do a 3-day confined space class, so forgive me on that, but hopefully we'll get one down the road here. But doing a confined space, there's a few different positions we have to have, and it's important for the guy that's in charge, the ops guy, to get those positions lined out initially so everybody understands their job. So obviously we have to have somebody going in the hole doing a rescue. So with that being said, we always send 2 people in. Always we work in pairs when we go inside these confined spaces. The only exception is an area where it's physically impossible to send 2 people in. You're going in, you have to go into an 18-inch pipe, something of that nature. Obviously, only one guy's going in. You and me. We're the guys going in. Maybe him. I'm not sending bigger dudes in there. My smaller dudes are going in there. Nobody else is going to fit. That's just the way it is. No offense to anybody. Let's not start yet. Okay, everybody fits, guys. You're right. Okay, so that would be the only exception, and that's going to be kind of a tricky little rescue there because you're probably going to handcuff him out and get him out, whatever. But if we can fit multiple people in there, always in pairs. Okay, so we got our 2 rescuers going in there. We always want to have an attendant for each one of those rescuers because we're going to be on umbilical lines, right? So as we go in and work in confined space, we'll go over the air cart and everything out there. We're usually not walking into a room, and though we're limited to 300 feet as we go in, we usually don't just go in someplace on SCBA with a finite air supply because if something happens and I'm in some type of asphyxiant or something that's compromised for my breathing, I'm going to be in trouble. So when you guys go in here, you're always going to be hooked on your SARs with your umbilical lines and your continuous air supply going in with you all the time. You might be going in with comms. We're not going to do that today. We actually don't have that on 16 right now. 46 is the only thing that has that. West County has that, but we don't have comms lines. And that is simply because as you go into these places, and you'll see today our radios don't work, so a continuous cable comm line hooked to your headset and throat mic usually is what you're going to go off of. What we'll find today and what worked is you really will bonk as soon as you get down in this hole, so we'll operate on 84 direct. And that's probably real life is, for us, it's getting in there, getting going. Will we have the tractor trailer there? I don't know. But we have everything on 16 to effect a confined space rescue. You're just dealing with 84 direct when you go in there. But we want to have those guys on their comm lines and that well. So anyway, so you have a guy outside that's manning those umbilical lines as they go in, because obviously as they go in, you're feeding it to them. As they come out, you're kind of taking that slack up. So it's important to have an attendant. Sometimes, depending on how many people, it might be the same guy as the air cart guy. So we want to have somebody that's monitoring our air supply. So the air cart that we have, we're going to try and use 16s, all 16 stuff today. The air cart on 16 is identical to 2246 and all that. 46 has two different air carts. One's a little more intimidating, has extra ports on it for air tools, has two separate regulators on there. I'm not getting that out today. We're going to concentrate on 16 stuff. So our air cart basically is probably our primary, think of our SCBAs, our primary stage regulator. And as you see out there, we got an air supply there, or we can run an air supply into it. So I'm going to have somebody that's there monitoring that air supply all the time and ready to change out bottles, do whatever. That guy might do double duty sometimes, right? The next guy I've got to have somebody that's running rigging. So usually, unless they're just walking in, if I've got haul or lowering systems, obviously I have to have the people to work those lowering and hauling systems. If they don't have to be lowered down and they're just going in horizontally, I still have to have them on a line. So when we go in these confined spaces, remember, we are always on an emergency retrieval line. So if you were to go down, for whatever reason, you have a malfunction, something like that happens, we're still able to haul or start pulling you out. So everybody that goes in is going on a line. Okay, and I'll talk about the actual rescue, what we're going to do today, and how we're going to set that up when we go down there today. So either way, we have to have people to man that. All right, and then if we have to, we always want, just like we do 2 in, 2 out, we want guys that are in the same PPE as the guys that are in the hole. We want those guys outside ready to go in with the exact same amount of PPE, ready to go, and go get those guys should we have an issue with one of them and need to effect a rescue of one of our own dudes. All right. Let's see. Then obviously, safety officer's good. And your safety officer should be somebody that knows confined space and they know what's going on and what to look for. Usually we'll have an ops guy, and again, the ops guy should be a confined space guy or your best guy. Doesn't necessarily mean you got a red or a white helmet. Who's your best guy there that's ready to run the job. And then we got command out there. Command can be anybody because they're just handling resources, right? I call for resources, I need stuff, and bring it in. And the other thing is, if you didn't call,
when they try to tell us what to do?
Huh?
What do we do when command tries to tell us what to do?
I can't answer that. Tell them I got it in hand, right, Eric? So that's a hard one to answer. Who are you talking about?
Well,
I think
the chiefs are going to come out of the woodwork for anything.
I think there's only one battalion chief that's going to try doing that. But if it's us, if we have this here at Monarch, the ops guy is going to be probably whoever the rescue captain is coming in, or say if it's you're going to be first in with 3s, probably at the water plant. So it's probably going to be you.
Right.
Depending on what happens. So I think anybody here, any of our chief officers here, is going to let that happen. Unless it's something on the river, we know who's going to come in and take over. However, and I can't think of any battalion chief that's going to come in and just start running the confined space for you. I think they'll let you do that. You might be able to think of one, but I think we'll probably be okay there. But I think that's kind of on a me as is basis. I don't know if I can answer that, or he's videoing it, and I'm not going to comment or say names to protect the innocent and the guilty.
Well, here's the thing. If they want to do that, then you make them ops.
That could be.
Come on in, be ops.
That could be. You go out and take command. So it's kind of hard to tell the people above you what to do, but we understand that. But hopefully they understand that if it's out of their wheelhouse, then let the people whose wheelhouse it is run the actual scene, the operations of the scene. Let's see. So, again, you know, and then going in, everything is safe. You know, we set these guys in. So, what we're going to do, I don't know if everybody can see, I kind of wrote on the board a little bit, kind of showing this is the building right here. And what we have today is we have a shaft that's going down, and it's a good open shaft. We have an opening right here that's maybe 24 inches. It might be 24 by 24 as it's open. So we're going to rig a high point. So what I'd like to do today is rig the vortex over that. As you'll see that there is a good solid stairwell that goes above this thing to the next roof line or whatever's up there that we could, in real life, I would probably just rig high directionals around there and run my rigging off of those. But for the practice of setting up the vortex, we'll set up the vortex over the hole today. It does work very well, and I'm going to put that on 16's crew to get that stuff set up and help oversee the rigging, with kind of Ben and I overseeing everything, kind of as dual safeties, if you will. When we set the vortex up over there, we're right up against the wall here, and if you put that vortex, so it's kind of right up against the pad, you'll see that you can rig it like we do elevator rescue for my 16 guys. You know, we put that 4th foot plate, we kind of flip that around so the inside leg is at the top, and then rig that so the plate's at the top. And if you're not familiar with it, don't worry, well, I'll help you rig it. So we'll rig that up. We're going to run our lines back to 2216 as our anchor, and I'll show you where to position. You'll just pull in so that you can use the rear receiver or the side receiver. Unless you have a different plan, it's your truck, you're welcome to do whatever you want, but we kind of just use the contour plate on the receiver. We'll run off our rigging off as 16, so we'll rig high directionals again on our vortex. So we're going to have dual tension lines. I kind of like to get into the dual tension line thing instead of a slack safety and one lowering line because they back each other up. So with that being said, so I get on, I'm the first guy in, right? So say we have the red and the orange line. So same thing. I got it rigged up, hooked to me, hooked to my harness. I'm in the harness, I'm on my skate pack, my air. We'll go over that outside here in a minute. I'm hooked to my umbilical line. Everything's cool, we're ready to go in. So as they lower me down, they're going to lower me. We're going to use 2 clutches, so we have to grab the one off 34 because our second one's not in yet, or 54, doesn't matter. So they're going to lower me, dual tension lines, remember, evenly, so I got one's backing up the other all the time, right? I get down to the bottom. So for me, I'm the first rescuer in, so let's say I'm going to leave the orange line attached to me because I have to stay attached to a line the whole time, right? Disconnect my red line, set the red line back up. So let's say Tony's the next dude in. Tony comes in, they hook the red line to his harness, but then you butterfly off on the lowering side of the pulley, because that happened the other day too. It's like, oh, I got the other side. So butterfly off, hook into him. He's still a dual tension line now. Take up any slack, lower him down. So he's in the hole now. So now he stays on the orange line as well where that butterfly is, and we disconnect the red line and send it up so they can send down whatever patient packaging or whatever. So now, say me and Tony are in the hole, we can maneuver where we need to go to get to the patient. We're each still on a line. You have an option of putting separate lines on, guys. That just gets to be more stuff down in the hole. It's kind of whatever you want to do. Just remember that each line you put in has to be hooked up so it can be an emergency retrieval, an emergency haul system if need be. That means either changing it into a haul system or piggybacking on a haul system to it that you have to have set up. Even if you have the Aztec just set up laying on the ground hook to an anchor, just remember that. The easiest thing, the less slop down there, is us being on that same line. The downfall of that is that, so say there's 20 feet between Tony and myself, I go down, I was the first rescuer in. So that Tony's got to rig me up and send me up. Probably there's going to be enough to get me up and out of there, but he might have to re-rig a little bit, because usually as we do this, last guy in is first guy out. Because that way you're not getting your lines tangled up. Because if there should be enough because of the lowering, you shouldn't have an issue with that, but it could be you get to the top and we start pulling and Tony's down there, and you start yanking on him, you know, whatever, because he's butterflied off. Get what I'm saying right there? Okay, makes sense? So less slop, single line, which is what we'll do today. But the way we do it is last person in is first one out. So we're both in there, we find our patient, we call for whatever we need. So let's say we call for the halfback. So you guys will rig up the halfback, so you'll butterfly it off again, hook it into your lowering line, you'll lower it down. So we'll grab the halfback, we can disconnect it from the lowering line, and we can disconnect it from both lines while we're packaging the patient, but I always have to hook it back into my retrieval line again. So say we gotta move 100 feet to the hole, that patient is always, so patient and rescuers are always on the retrieval line, okay, no matter what. We get back to the hole, so we hook now both lines on again. So the retrieval line's on, it's butterflied off, red line on, take up slack, haul us up. So again, everything is dual tension lines as we go up and out, okay? So as we go down, so you'll lower these guys down. There is some water in there, so you'll go down, there's a grate right here, kind of like was in the other ones we did last time. There is like a little pit there below the grate. There's about, it's like maybe about 2 feet of water in there. And there's a huge ass line probably down here, and if it breaks, we're all dead, but I think it'd take an earthquake to break. That's right, so don't worry too much about it. As you walk through here, this shaft is about, I don't know, it's about 100 feet long maybe, I'm just guessing. We don't have to go all the way down. It's about 12 foot high though, so plenty of room to walk, probably about 6 foot wide. About 15 feet down on your right, there's going to be another shaftway that you'll see up above you, maybe about 6 feet or so, 7 feet. That's about 3 foot by 4 foot. So we're going to actually put the patient in there, okay? So there is a scaffolding down there, but I don't, that scaffolding's probably been there since Jesus was a baby. I don't know if I would trust it. I kind of stood on it, but to do all your work on that. So my suggestion, you can do whatever you want. My suggestion is, hey, tell them, hey, lower a little giant, something down to you, something you can maneuver, position in different positions to get up there to get to your patient, all right? So both guys are down there, they're on the retrieval line. Let's say the red line's our haul line, send that back up. You call for whatever patient packaging you want, whether you decide you want to do the SCAD or the halfback, or you want to mess with the Yates, which is on 2216. How many people have seen that? Anybody not seen the Yates backpack yet?
That's the new one?
Yeah, so we'll probably get that out here this morning. We'll lower that down, you know, we'll bring it over, we'll package the patient. So I'm not going to be down there, but what I would appreciate is instead of just taking the patient and throwing him out the hole onto the ground, maybe think about, okay, do I just slide him down the ladder, or how do we gently lower him down or whatever so he's on the main level there. All right, if you throw him, well, it's already busted to crap. Somebody busted the head, I think, yesterday. Well, I don't think they broke it. I think it was just duct taped up, but it got broken the other day. So get your patient out, we come out, and again, obviously, last in is first out. So patient is going to be our first one up and out. We normally, on a confined space, you're not going to have any way to really ride with your patient. Unless you have a really big opening and you elect to do that, we're not going to put an attendant with the patient on the line. So we send our victim up and out the hole. Then obviously second rescue, which again, in me and Tony's scenario, Tony's up and out the hole next. And then, because you lower the red line back down, hook to him, again, dual tension up, lower it down again, hook to me, dual tension up, we're both up and out. All right, and that'll pretty much be the scenario right there, and then we'll try and roll through it a couple times if possible. Hopefully nobody has to leave. While we're down there in the hole, we'll do a little kind of briefing beforehand, because I want you guys to actually, when you're actually seeing what we're looking at, we'll do a little safety briefing before we go in the hole, make sure everybody's ready to go. So what we will do when we go through this scenario is, everybody's familiar with 1403, how we do that, hey, go, no go, right? We will do that as well on this. So Ben's in charge or whatever today, he'll say, you know, air, go, no go, whatever. As soon as everybody's a go and everybody's ready to go, then we'll go ahead and start lowering guys down. This is a true confined space, so we will be filling out the permit while we're there. We don't have to turn it in to anybody or anything like that. Those forms we have to turn in, but we will file a permit and do that while we're there, kind of like it was a real thing to the best of our ability. And that's basically, again, it's documentation. You're monitoring when the guys go in. You're monitoring what their air pressure was. You're monitoring how long they were in there, when they come out, any particulars about the patient and all that stuff. The form that I have today is not the same form that's on. It's a little bit different form, that's on the iPad of 2216. But it's basically just monitoring the whole time and just documenting everything that's going on. Okay, any issues, any changes. The other thing is, when you guys are down there, and you should have meters on you, we should be calling out every few minutes and giving an air reading. Okay, just to remind you guys to give an air reading. you know, and say, hey, I'm still at whatever percent error. So we want to know if there's any changes. And for real, we want to make sure there's any changes. So today we will actually have a meter hanging down there. There's also a ladder there you'll see, so for emergency egress, so you can just run right up the ladder too. We don't necessarily have to haul you out if need be. But I want to make sure that one rescuer, at least that's down in the hole, has a meter attached to him as well, so we got multiple meters going. Okay. It is a confined space. I don't see any issues. I don't think there's never been an issue down there. It's nice and open, you know, but it is. And there's even a sign on the wall that it's a confined space. All right. So that's all I'm going to talk today. I've talked enough. So we'll go out in the bay, and we're just going to do a little bit of run through of the air cart. I'm not going to go over rigging and all that. We're all rope guys. Everybody knows how to rig. Everybody knows how to set stuff up. It might be a little bit of a refresher when we get there. With that being said, you know, give me your feedback at some point. I tried to cut this down. Logistically, it seems to work better for everybody. We do a 4-hour session, and everybody's out of here by noon. Instead of doing the full day. Personally, I like the full day because it gives us a really good review of stations, you know, in the morning, and then we eat something, and then we go do a scenario while it's fresh in our head and put it all together. Logistically, it just seems to work better to do it the other way. If you think this is just rushing through it and you don't get enough out of it, let me know. We can always change it back to the end part of this year or whatever when we do structural collapse, or I don't know if I'll get to trencher now with the road class, but at least we'll do SCT type of stuff. We can do it differently then if you feel like it's been a long time. You need more of a review before we just go do it. Just let me know that, and we'll try and do that or change it up a little bit. So we'll go out there. We're going to review the air cart and skate packs, which I'll use the skate pack off of 2216 because I can see a little bit of a difference. So I can grab one of those. I've already got an air cart. I do want to use the lines off the 16 down there today instead of 46s, just because we don't ever get them off. So just to hook them up so guys can see them and use them. And then I don't know if you've been up there. You know we got blue right now.
No, but you got the sheets.
The sheets are on there. So one's red. We did another shift did blue, and they didn't do it right, and they ran out. They didn't milk yet. You got to keep working that stuff down the tube, and they didn't do it all the way in. They were short about 20 feet. So it's being recorded. It's exactly the same thing I'm thinking. But, so, all right. So anyway, but we do have, so on 16 now, instead of just all, the black airlines are black, we have colored sheaths on them so we can keep track, hey, who's on the red line, who's on the blue line, blah, blah, blah. So we'll go over that. We're going to go over some patient packaging. We'll get the 8 spec pack out, let you guys see and play with that. It's just a half pack on steroids, a little bit. We'll get the half pack out. We don't have to set it up, but I want to show you connection points on there because I did it wrong the other day. If we want to get the SCED out and run through the SCED, if it's been a while, we'll package somebody in the SCED as well, just so you can see that for a vertical lift. And then we'll pack all that stuff up and we'll head down to the water plant. All right? Everybody good?
Sounds good. 5 minutes?
Yep.
Emergency on the ground, Mayday, true Mayday.
Yes, if there's a Mayday, it's a real Mayday.
All right. Rich.